There is nothing you need to do. Just be quiet. When we hear these words, there is something in us that recognizes them immediately. Not the thinking mind, which will quickly object and say this cannot be true, but something deeper, something that has been waiting patiently beneath all our striving and seeking. That deeper knowing understands that the instruction to stay quiet is not about suppressing thought or forcing the mind into submission. It is about recognizing that the very activity we have been engaged in, this constant mental doing, this perpetual effort to become something other than what we are, is precisely what obscures the truth we seek. The human mind operates under a fundamental misunderstanding. It believes that peace must be achieved, that happiness must be acquired, that truth must be found through effort and accumulation. We spend our lives building elaborate structures of thought, creating complex strategies for living, analyzing our experiences, planning our futures, and reviewing our pasts. The mind is never still. It moves from one thought to the next like a restless animal, always seeking, always grasping, always convinced that the next thought, the next insight, the next experience will finally bring the fulfillment it craves. Robert Adams understood this mechanism intimately. He saw that the mind, in all its frantic activity, is not the problem itself, but rather a reflection of a deeper confusion, what the ancient teachings call ignorance or Maya. This is not ignorance in the sense of lacking information, but ignorance of our true nature. We have forgotten what we are. We have become so identified with the movement of thought, with the personal story, with the sense of being a separate individual navigating through time and space, that we have lost contact with the silent, aware presence that has been here all along, witnessing everything, untouched by any experience. When he says there is nothing you need to do, he is pointing to a revolutionary understanding. The spiritual search itself, with all its practices and techniques, its methods and disciplines, can become another form of the same activity that keeps us bound. We approach spirituality as we approach everything else in life, with the mentality of doing, achieving, progressing. We accumulate knowledge. We perform practices. We measure our advancement. And in all of this, we remain trapped in the same paradigm that created our suffering in the first place. The belief that we are incomplete and must do something to become complete. The instruction to stay quiet, to remain in silence, is not asking you to add another practice to your spiritual repertoire. It is asking you to stop, completely stop. Stop the search. Stop the effort. Stop trying to become enlightened. Stop trying to fix yourself. Stop trying to improve your meditation. Stop analyzing your progress. Just stop. This stopping is what Adams called surrender. Not a passive resignation or a giving up in defeat, but an active recognition that the power operating through life is infinitely more intelligent than the limited perspective of the personal mind. There is, as he often said, a power that knows the way. This power has been orchestrating the entire universe since before time began. It coordinates the movement of galaxies and the beating of your heart. It grows the trees and moves the seasons. It has brought you to this very moment, reading these very words, and it will continue to guide every aspect of your existence, whether you cooperate with it or not. The question is not whether this power exists, or whether it is operating. The question is whether you will relax into it, or continue to exhaust yourself, trying to control life with your tiny, limited understanding. The mind wants to be in charge. It wants to figure everything out, to maintain control, to ensure its own survival and significance. But this very effort creates a tension, a contraction that separates us from the natural flow of existence. When Adams speaks about silence, he is not referring merely to the absence of sound or even the absence of thought. He is pointing to something far more profound. Silence, in his teaching, is the ground of being itself. the substratum upon which all experience appears. This silence is not empty or vacant. It is, as he described it, an intense activity, but an activity of a completely different order than mental activity. It is the activity of pure awareness, pure presence, pure being. In our ordinary state, the mind is like a turbulent ocean, with waves of thought constantly rising and falling, creating endless disturbance on the surface. We identify with these waves, believing ourselves to be the movement, the content, the drama. We think we are our thoughts, our emotions, our experiences. But beneath all this movement, at the depths of the ocean, there is profound stillness. The ocean floor is never disturbed by the waves on the surface. This stillness is what we truly are. When you stop, when you become quiet, something remarkable happens. Not immediately, perhaps, because the mind has tremendous momentum. Years, perhaps lifetimes of habitual thinking do not cease in an instant, but gradually, as you give attention to the silence rather than to the noise, as you rest in simple presence rather than engaging with every thought that arises, the turbulence begins to settle. The waves become smaller, the water grows clearer, and in that clarity, you begin to see what has always been there, but was obscured by the constant agitation. This is what Adams means when he says everything will come to you. He is not promising that all your desires will be fulfilled, or that your life will become perfect according to your personal specifications. He is pointing to something infinitely more valuable. When the mind becomes quiet, when you rest in the silence of your true nature, the peace you have been seeking through 10,000 methods reveals itself as your own being. The happiness you thought you needed to acquire through circumstances and achievements is discovered to be the very essence of what you are. The love you have been chasing in relationships and experiences is found to be the nature of awareness itself. Everything comes to you because you discover that you are not separate from anything. The sense of being a limited individual, cut off from life, needing to protect yourself and acquire things to feel complete, is recognized as a fiction, a misidentification. In silence, the boundaries that seem to separate you from the world dissolve. Not conceptually or philosophically, but as a direct recognition, an immediate knowing that cannot be doubted. This is why Adams emphasized again and again that the spiritual path is not about adding anything to yourself. You are already complete. You are already whole. You are already the self, the consciousness, the awareness that is the source and substance of all existence. The only problem is that you believe otherwise. You believe the story the mind tells about who and what you are. You believe in your limitations, your history, your problems, your needs. And this belief, this identification with the mental construct of a separate self, is what creates all suffering. The activity of the mind is fundamentally an attempt to solve a problem that does not actually exist. We are trying to fix something that is not broken, improve something that is already perfect, acquire something we already possess. This is why all mental effort, no matter how sincere or sophisticated, ultimately fails to bring lasting peace. You cannot think your way to truth. You cannot figure out enlightenment. You cannot achieve what you already are. When you stop trying, when you simply rest in the natural state of being, without judgment, without agenda, without the constant commentary and evaluation, the truth reveals itself, not as something new or foreign, but as the most intimate, obvious fact of your existence. You realize that you have never been anything other than this aware presence. Every experience of your entire life has been appearing in this awareness, sustained by this awareness, made of this awareness. Nothing has ever happened outside of what you are. This is the great discovery, yet it is not a discovery at all, because you cannot discover what you have never lost. It is more accurate to call it a recognition, a remembering, a return to what has always been the case. The self does not come and go. It does not increase or decrease. It is not affected by any experience, any thought, any circumstance. It is the unchanging reality in which all change appears. Adams called this the silence of the heart, not because the heart stops feeling or experiencing, but because at the core of your being there is an absolute stillness that nothing can touch. This is your home. This is what you have been seeking through every desire, every ambition, every relationship, every experience. You have been trying to return here through a million different paths, not realizing that you have never left, that you could never leave, that there is nowhere else to be. The instruction to stay quiet is an invitation to stop postponing your happiness. Stop waiting for the right circumstances. Stop believing that you need to fix yourself first, improve yourself first, purify yourself first, before you can rest in peace. The mind will always find another reason to delay, another condition that must be met, another practice that must be completed. But peace is not in the future. It is not the result of any process. It is here now, in the silence beneath your thoughts. This does not mean that life stops happening, or that you become passive and inactive. Quite the opposite. When you are no longer driven by the compulsive need to fix yourself or control life, when you are no longer motivated by fear and lack, then action arises from a completely different source. Adams called this divine harmony, the natural intelligence of life itself moving through you. What needs to be done gets done, but without the suffering, without the anxiety, without the burden of believing that you are solely responsible for making everything happen. There is a power that knows the way. Trust it, not as an abstract concept or a hopeful belief, but through direct experience. Sit quietly. Stop engaging with every thought. Stop feeding the mental drama. Let the mind be as it is, but do not identify with it. Notice that you are the awareness in which thoughts appear, not the thoughts themselves. Notice that you exist prior to any thought, independent of any thought. You are here before the first thought arises in the morning, and you remain here after the last thought subsides at night. This awareness that you are is not personal. It does not belong to you because it is what you fundamentally are. It is not created or destroyed. It has no beginning or end. It is the same awareness that is looking through every pair of eyes, the same consciousness that animates all of life. When you rest in this awareness, you rest in the source, in God, in the self, in truth, whatever word you prefer to use for that which cannot actually be named, because it is prior to all concepts. From this resting, this silence, this simple being, everything that is genuine arises. Real love, not the needy, grasping emotion we usually call love, but the unconditional openness that recognizes itself in all beings. Real compassion, not the pity that reinforces separation, but the natural response of the heart when it knows there is no other. Real joy, not dependent on circumstances, but the inherent nature of consciousness itself, always present, always available. Even in the midst of life's challenges, Adams never asked anyone to believe him. He simply invited people to test this for themselves. Stop, be quiet, see what happens. Not once or twice, but consistently, sincerely, with patience and dedication. Make this silence your primary practice, not something you do for 15 minutes in the morning before returning to the usual mental chaos, but the ground from which you live. Keep returning to the silence. Keep resting in simple presence. Keep recognizing that you are not the voice in your head, but the awareness that hears it. Over time, or perhaps suddenly, you will discover what he discovered, what every genuine teacher throughout history has discovered. There is only the self. There is only consciousness. There is only this eternal, infinite, unchanging presence that has never been born and will never die, that has no problems, no needs, no limitations. And this is what you are, not what you will become through great effort, but what you have always been, what you are right now, in this very moment. Everything will come to you, not because you are acquiring things from outside, but because you are recognizing that everything is already here, already within you, already what you are. The kingdom of heaven, as the ancient teaching says, is within, not in some mystical location inside your body, but in the very heart of your being, in the silence that precedes and follows every experience, in the awareness that is reading these words right now. This is not philosophy. This is not religion. This is not belief. This is direct recognition of truth, and it is available to everyone, not because of any special qualification or merit, but because it is the fundamental nature of existence itself. You cannot be separate from what you are. You can only believe you are separate. And that belief, maintained by constant mental activity, by the endless stream of thought, is what creates the illusion of a separate self struggling through life. When you stop maintaining that belief, when you stop feeding that illusion with your attention and identification, it cannot sustain itself. Like a fire without fuel, it simply goes out. And what remains is what has always been here, the simple, obvious, undeniable fact of your own existence, your own being, your own awareness. This is the peace that passes understanding. This is the love that has no opposite. This is the truth that sets you free. So the invitation stands, as it has always stood, as it will always stand. Stop. Be quiet. Let everything be as it is, without trying to change it, fix it, improve it, or understand it. Rest in the awareness that is prior to all experience. Trust the power that knows the way, and discover, in the silence of your own heart, that you have never been anything other than complete, whole, and free. If these words resonate with something deep within you, if they point you toward the silence that is your true home, then join us in this ongoing exploration of non-duality and self-knowledge. Subscribe to this channel, share your insights in the comments, and help us build this community of sincere seekers who are tired of seeking and ready to rest in what is. Your presence here is not an accident. The same power that brought Robert Adams' teaching into the world has brought you to these words in this moment for this recognition. Honor that, trust that, and most importantly, be quiet and see what reveals itself in the silence. There is nothing you need to do. Everything you have been seeking is already here, waiting for you to stop looking and simply be.